Alrighty everyone, Eggplant here, and I just want to do a quick review and give some thoughts on another early access game called Nine Kings. Nine Kings is developed by Sad Socket Studios and published by Hooded Horse and Instinct 3. Sad Socket is a small indie dev who's headed up by two lifelong friends, and they have a few games under their belt, but Nine Kings is definitely my first exposure. So what is Nine Kings other than this fun, cute little game that I picked up over the weekend? Well, it's a good time-burning game with some cute, charming pixel art. It's a roguelike strategy game where you start with a small 9-square kingdom and you use cards to develop your kingdom and your army so you can battle against other invading kings. It feels a bit like a tower defense game, only instead of enemies taking long routes to reach you, it's more of an army versus army clash where you pepper in your king's active ability to help out your forces. As you defeat the enemies invading you, you get new cards to build and grow your little fiefdom, leading you to get stronger and stronger, and then progressively take on stronger and stronger foes until you eventually fight another king as a boss. From there, you can then proceed into endless mode, which does have some issues, and I'm going to pick at those later for sure. But each king has their own style, which is somewhat unique. Some kings are the pretty standard fantasy flair. The king of nothing is basically things like soldiers and towers, and the king of nature is elves and, well, nature where you get little forests and boars to help you out, and mushrooms. Lots of mushrooms can happen too. But then you have some more interesting ones, like the King of Blood, whose active ability is to summon demons, and a way to make a lot of his units stronger is you actually want your units to die, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept. There's also the King of Progress, who, well, has guns and rats, and his castle and unique ability is a mothership that floats out and starts blasting enemies, which I thought was pretty interesting. Now each king has their own strategy that you kind of want to try to get running off the ground, and as you defeat kings, you get cards from their kingdoms, which brings in some unique things and gives you some variety in how you want to enhance your kings based on the other ones, and starts giving you a lot of different synergies and things to think about and almost different paths you can take down. And this mix matching of the king cards just gives a lot of variety and gives you a lot of fun ways to start thinking about your strategies and how you want to do things. The cards you get for each victory or each shop purchase come in a handful of different types. There's the troop cards, which are your basic units. There's buildings, which are used to basically buff your troops. Then there's things like enchantments, which then give you the ability to give your troops some type of perk like life steal, or when they die they explode or do chain damage. There's also tome cards, which can do odd things like level up your plots, unlock new ones, or even sacrifice them to get some certain buffs and effects. Then there's towers, which are kind of static support units for your troops. Sometimes they do damage, sometimes they'll heal them or do buffs. The mushrooms are one of these tower cards. And there's your bases, where each king has their own unique base. This is where your active abilities come from, and continually level it up, and the higher level you get, the stronger your king's unique action ability will be. The runs are also pretty short in this game. They've usually been about 15 to 20 minutes each. I think there's even a speedrun challenge that's about 9 minutes for a quick game, and honestly it's just pretty fun to have a quick flash in the pan game of just kind of turn your mind off for a little bit and see where it goes. As for difficulty, it honestly feels extremely easy at first, but once you start getting to the higher levels, it can feel pretty nutty in what's going on, and they do actually give you a warning once you get to the higher difficulty settings, and once you hit endless mode, that basically says like, hey, the balance after this point is completely broken, so good luck. As with these modes, even if you seem to be leveling up at a decent pace and keeping on par, you're eventually just going to hit a wall where the enemies will completely steamroll and obliterate you, and it really just doesn't feel fair when that happens. I was thinking that maybe once I started to unlock more runes and those types of things, it would kind of help balance it out, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But I mean, hey, they did give you the disclaimer, but it does definitely feel a little overtuned at time. I think they're probably aware of this, so there needs to just be some type of scaling adjustment here, because it ultimately does feel bad when you just all of a sudden go from doing pretty well to just getting completely blown over. Alrighty, let's talk about some of the good and some of the bad. I find the quick play nature pretty great, and the exploration and self-discovery of what each king does was pretty enjoyable to me. The various units and how all the kings interact is just good fun. The issue does start to feel that after a while, it does kind of feel a little bit shallow, as the novelty of the newness sort of wears off after a while. This isn't to say the game doesn't have depth. It's enough to cannonball into and make a splash, but The variety makes it a bit of a wide puddle, but it's definitely not the deepest by any means. Now, there is a big elephant in the room, which I'm also surprised there's no elephant unit in this game. I feel like it would fit the Greed Kingdom, but digressing. The art style here. This is going to be really hit or miss with a lot of people. If you like simple, what I'll call old school pixel graphics, this will work for you, but if you don't dig that art style, then this probably won't be too good of a fit. I think the stylization here works well for what it is. Buildings and cards themselves aren't too bad and are pretty visually distinct, however the units do kind of become blobs, so there can be a lack of distinction sometimes with the units, especially considering how zoomed out you are, so. Also, I wish the bosses kind of had a little more going on with them. They have the size and the scale down, but they also become a little blobby themselves. I just wish they were a little more distinct and had a bit more grandness to them. There's some individuality to them, it's just most of the time they kind of come off as just being a big duder and not this big grand king that I feel like it should be. I want their presence to be felt as soon as they step onto the battlefield and give you like a, oh dang, look at this thing, where right now it's just kind of like, yep, big guy, here he is. When it comes to the strategy of gameplay, usually you want something that buffs your soldiers and then you put it in the middle and then have that buff your troops, and then you kind of pepper the outside with potential towers or maybe even other buffs. So the idea of the strategy ends up being the same, it's just sometimes dependent on making sure you get the right units that can protect the backline, or making sure you have strong enough damaging units to kind of blow through the enemies. So it's the variety where the difference comes in, but the strategy kind of feels similar, although the variants of different kings change that up. For example, the Gold King, you basically want more turrets because you can get those turrets pretty insanely crazy after a while if you play things right. So I also think if they added a few more randomish elements into the runs, it could help pepper things up. I don't know, things like natural causes or something, I don't know. I also think it could be fun that at one point in the game you have to choose an ally, which once you choose them as your ally, it basically means you're not going to get to see any of their cards anymore, which could be good or bad depending on your synergies, but I don't know, I think it'd be fun if whoever you pick to be your ally, you kind of got their active ability too, only maybe it just has a double cooldown time or something, so it's not completely broken, but who knows, maybe the boss you beat at the end should be the one you get the double active ability in, since it gets so broken once you get to endless mode. That could be a good way to balance out the end game experience. But while the later difficulties do seem broken and it does kind of feel like it gets a little shallow after a while, I still think overall it's a pretty fun little game that I only picked up for $10 and I just thought I'd share it. I'm not sure I would pay too much more for it right now, but maybe at full release, once they release some of the other game modes and content, it'll fill it out a little bit more, and maybe it'll even have a little bit more depth and spice. I don't know if they're going to be adding more cards, but there still is a whole king I haven't gotten to play with yet, so it'd be interesting to see what he can do and how he can interact with the other kings and their abilities. But overall, the gameplay is pretty fun and has that roguelike moorishness that you tend to want out of this type of game. So I feel like the core concept here is pretty good. It just needs a bit more meat on the bones. But again, it is an early access, so it is very much still in the oven and probably still getting padded out. And I feel like, from what I've seen anyway, Sandsocket Studios is sort of aware of these things and hopefully they're working on them. This game is very much a very light read of a game, which isn't a bad thing. That's sometimes what you want. Again, it's been a fun little take a quick flash, play it when you need a quick little break, and then see what you unlock, see if you made it, and go on from there and come back later. It's not necessarily something you want to binge for hours and hours, I'd say. But yeah, like I said, it does have some issues, but overall I am still very much enjoying it and just wanted to give it a shout out. So yeah, like, subscribe, and as always, try fast, take chances. Later, kings.